5 years ago, Ernest Fenwick MacIntosh was convicted of 17 counts of sexually abusing young boys in a Nova Scotia community in the 1970s. Well, 2 years ago, the Supreme Court of Canada set him free, ruling that it had taken too long to bring him to trial. Then this January, MacIntosh was arrested in Nepal, accused of sexually abusing a 9-year-old boy. And on Sunday, MacIntosh was convicted and sentenced to 7 years. MacIntosh's Canadian victims say they applaud Nepal for doing in 49 days what Canada couldn't do in 15 years. So the question is, what went wrong? In this week's Maclean's magazine, senior writer Anne Kingston looks at the saga of Fenwick MacIntosh. She joins us this morning from Toronto. Hi, Anne. Welcome to you.
Good morning, Tara.
So the question is, what took Canada so long? The first complainant came forward in 1995. He didn't stand trial until 2010. What happened?
Well, that's the question for a federal investigation, an independent federal inquiry, which unfortunately has not happened or was ruled out. This is an amazing story in that it did take 15 years between the first complaint and the trials that we don't know exactly all the bureaucratic bungling that went on. We know that it happened at the Crown Attorney level. It happened in the provincial sort of government level. It happened certainly within the Justice Department, where the case sat on a desk for 5 years. There was also huge issues about the extradition. Mr. MacIntosh was in India when all of this was going on. They had to get him out of India. And there are all sorts of questions surrounding the fact that he was allowed to keep a passport. There are a zillion questions, but it's been sort of ruled out as bureaucratic bungling, but it's far more complicated than that.
Fenwick MacIntosh, very well-connected man, involved in government at different times in his life, even perhaps holding top secret clearance from the government of Canada. Is there evidence that he did have assistance at that level? There's no
hard evidence. I certainly looked for it, but there's all sorts of hints and clues, including the fact that his lawyer suggested when the government tried to revoke his passport in 1998. This is one of the central kind of mysteries. They tried to revoke his passport, and then MacIntosh sort of appealed that revocation, and the federal government said, okay, now you can keep your passport. And this is actually somebody who had criminal convictions for sex offenses in Canada. He had all of these charges out against him outstanding, and he was allowed to keep his passport. And more to the point, it's understood that he also came in and out of the country during the period in which he had a Canada-wide arrest warrant in his name.
Okay, so we've covered a little bit of what happened in Canada. Tell us what happened in Nepal.
Well, what happened in Nepal was incredibly speedy justice. Between December, when the charges were laid, and this Sunday, the conviction, as you mentioned, it was less than 50 days. So they took it very seriously. Part of the story that's absolutely really important is the fact that many of MacIntosh's, the men who survived MacIntosh's assaults in the Cape Breton area in the 1970s have mobilized, and they provided information to the Nepalese government about the prior cases, information that couldn't have been used, obviously, in Canada if he'd come to justice here. But at the same time, there was a concerted effort, clearly, to take this seriously and get him behind bars.
And what is next at this point for Fenwick MacIntosh?
Well, he has 90 days to appeal. It's presumed he will appeal. He's been now detained in one of the worst penal systems in the world, according to Amnesty International. So we don't exactly know. There's rumors that there are charges, complaints at least, have been laid in Port Hawkesbury, Nova Scotia. More men are coming forward to say that there are problems. The RCMP has not confirmed this. So there's, again, questions around the case. He might, in fact, if his passport expires, ironically, he might end up back in Canada, if he is extradited back to the country.
Well, Anne, we'll certainly be following this, and we know you will be. Anne Kingston is the senior writer at Maclean's magazine. Thank you so much for this, Anne.
My pleasure.
And the latest issue of Maclean's is on newsstands now. For more information and links, make sure you head to breakfasttelevision.ca.